Good morning and good afternoon to you all Year 7 and welcome to our very first annotation video. Today I'm going to be talking and visually showing you how to annotate the poem Half Caste by John Agard, which you learnt a bit about last lesson. So what you need to do is you need to get your copy of the poem in front of you and get ready to get the annotations I create on the screen onto your own copy as well. If you've already printed out the poem, then you can just handwrite straight onto there, or you can just open up your electronic version and you can just type up the annotations onto there as well. So it's your choice. So let's get started. So I've got this fancy little pen here. Unfortunately, the pen suddenly disappears after a few seconds of being on screen, so you guys are going to need to be pausing. Make sure you're paying really good attention. Every time I underline like this, you are going to need to highlight that line or phrase or word on your copy of the poem as well, and then you write your annotation. So first off, the excuse me standing on one leg, I'm half caste. So here we have a use of a sarcastic tone because John Agard is not really apologising here. He's just indicating that people have belittled him for being mixed race, and so he's sort of throwing that back in their faces. The next device used, you're going to need to highlight the yourself and you. This is direct address, okay? He's directly speaking to the reader, and Agard wants to put the reader in the position of someone who has used that derogatory term of half caste. Derogatory meaning like, oh, it's just really hurtful because it's like racist. It makes the poem sound accusatory, so like he's telling off the people that have done this. And also because we feel like we're being spoken to directly, as a reader we listen and we want to hear what he has to say because we feel like it involves us as well. Within this, as you all learnt yesterday, he is using that phonetic spelling and that non-standard English. And what I think this tells us, it shows the pride that he has in his Caribbean heritage, because he is still using that dialect and that accent even when it's in the written form. But then also he is, with other words in the poem, using standard English. He isn't using the phonetic spelling for every single word. And so he's actually showing that he is firmly part of both societies. He's firmly part of, standard British culture and the Caribbean culture, and that there doesn't really need to be this divide between the two. Within this line as well, so we got a third device going on here, he uses an imperative. An imperative is a command, explain yourself. He's telling us, he's commanding the reader, and from this there is a sense that the message he has to tell us in this poem is important, and it is. Next, what I want you to highlight, and I am going to scroll here, so do pause and rewind if you need to. There is the 3 different metaphors. So we've got the Picasso, mixed red and green. We've got the light and shadow mix in the sky. And then we've also got the Tchaikovsky with the black and white keys. So make sure you've got all 3 of those highlighted in whatever lovely colour that you have chosen today. So with all 3 of these, we can combine this into just one annotation, but you could zoom into each of these more closely if you wanted to. But these are all metaphors of juxtaposing images. Juxtaposing meaning it's a contrast, they're opposites. So especially with the black and the white keys, and also the light and the shadow, they're opposites. So that's what makes it a juxtaposition. Fancy word. So what he's doing here with all 3 of these images is he's arguing that, in everyday life, when we mix colours and notes and the colours of the sky and the weather, it's a good thing and it's seen as beautiful. So surely this must also be the case with blood and races too. And so therefore he's saying it's absurd that people have been racist to him for being mixed race. And so we're realising how unacceptable those derogatory terms like half caste are. What we're going to go on to next, you need to scroll down your poem just a bit more until you find the part where he really goes in with repeating the word half. Half of my ear, half of my eye, half a hand, half a dream, half a shadow, all of those halves. Because what's interesting about this use of repetition is that it's half in conjunction with like body parts. And he's being very sarcastic and angry in his tone here, because what he's telling us is that by using that term half caste, people are saying that he's not a full human, that he himself is completely half and therefore he's subhuman almost. What we've got next, a little bit further down again, we've then got him repeating the word whole. He does it 3 times within those 3 lines. And this is a juxtaposition to the word half, which he was repeating earlier on in the poem. And when he's saying the word whole, he's talking about the features of the reader. And what he's saying in this part is that the reader is the person who must change. He doesn't need to change, it's the reader. And we must change our thinking. And ideally, we need to come up with a better word. And as you can see, I clearly forgot to highlight before I started writing my annotation. So just make sure that you've also highlighted the words whole. You could do a circle around all 3 of them, don't mind, but just make sure that is highlighted. Lastly, let's look at the rhyme. There is no rhyme. There's certainly no rhyme pattern, but there is a rhythm within this poem if you were to read it out loud, which sounds almost Caribbean, and that links to the pride again that he has for his heritage and his culture, and he wants to bring that out in his poem. And lastly, the most thoughtful point about this poem, look at the layout. Look at how much space each line takes up on the page. Deliberately, the poem only fills up half a page, and this reflects, you know, all of the images he's already talked about in his poem, but most importantly that people have made him feel half all his life for being mixed race, and again it's a commentary on that racism that he's experienced and how absurd it all is. What I would now like you guys to do, obviously I've not annotated absolutely everything that you could have possibly annotated, so go back through again and see if there's anything else that you think is worth highlighting, noting, anything at all. And then here is your main task for today, which we would like you to spend a really good amount of time on, and you are going to upload this part and submit it to your teacher. You are going to be answering the following question about the poem, and it's going to be about Agard's use of repetition. So what I'd recommend is that number 1, you choose 2 words or phrases that he commonly repeats in the poem, and then you just think to yourself, and you can write it down, why do you think he keeps repeating these particular words? Lastly, you are going to write a PEA paragraph about Agard's use of repetition in the poem. This is the part that we teachers want to see. We're going to give you feedback on it. We've got sentence starters there in blue, which you can use. Just keep this video paused on this screen so that you can have it in front of you whilst you write your paragraph.